The U.S. is once again trying to start another color revolution, this time in Cuba. Not surprised. Again, the United States has been trying to overthrow the Cuban government since the Cuban Revolution overthrew the U.S.-backed dictatorship of Batista in that country. And the United States government has had embargo, sanctions, etc. placed on this small island country ever since then, because again, Cuba is charting their own course. They're actually trying to look after the well-being of their people. Their socialist government obviously can't have that. Can't have a government that actually provides universal health care. A country that doesn't let huge multinational corporations exploit the populace and the natural resources there for their own benefit, extracting that from the country, not giving anything back. Can't have that. And then you obviously have the corporate media in the United States, parodying all of this bullshit, how there are these massive protests against the Cuban government, which are just these small, basically right-wing protests without, again, giving any context of why maybe Cuba is in this predicament to begin with. Again, 6-long fucking decade embargo on the small island nation because, again, they're socialist. They're actually trying to look after the well-being of the working people, of the working class there, unlike the United States government, obviously. And what is it? I think the Cuban government has developed 5 COVID-19 vaccines, but they can't administer them because they can't actually get the syringes to give these shots to the people there because of this embargo. So anybody calling for nuance or anything like that, shut the fuck up. Like, zip it. If you're on the side of fucking regime change here, you're fucking disgusting. If you're doing both sides, any of that shit, shut the fuck up. Just log off. You're a fucking imperialist stooge doing the bidding of the U.S. empire. So here's Ben Norton on Twitter. Definitely give him a follow. Check out his work at the Gray Zone and the Moderate Rebels podcast. This is another huge rally in Cuba in support of the socialist government and revolution. It's significantly larger than the small right-wing protests, but this march, of course, won't get acknowledged by the corporate media, of course. And then you've also seen, a lot of pictures that people have been posting or sharing online, like supposedly about these huge protests against the Cuban government, but they actually haven't been in Cuba. They've been in other places all around the world. It's fucking ridiculous. This Cuban flag. Pretty big fucking rally. Look at that. Yeah. So, and then, again, you had just a couple fucking weeks ago, who are the only 2 countries in the world to vote for keeping this disgusting embargo on the small island, socialist island nation in place? United States and Israel. Jesus Christ. And then, so here you go. The Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova, on the right side of fucking history. Russia is, in this case. Not the United States, not Israel, every other fucking country who votes at the United Nations on the right side of history on this embargo issue. Not the United States. Again, just another fucking disgusting example how the Biden regime, no different than Trump when it comes to foreign policy. Look at this. Since its 1959 revolution, Cuban infant mortality rate has fallen from 37.3 to 4.3 per 1,000 lives births. That's actually less. A rate equivalent to Australia's and lower than the United States's. It's 5.8 for the U.S. Jesus Christ. So the infant mortality rate has dropped. Their life expectancy from 1970 to 2016 increased from 70 to 70.8, very close to the United States. Again, all the while this fucking disgusting embargo has been placed on this country, that yet they've been able to achieve such great success. Just think about what they would be able to do all these decades, all this time, if the United States literally wasn't trying to fucking choke the life out of this country to initiate regime change, which again is still what they're doing right fucking now. And again, what does the United States export to the world? Bombs, death, destruction, sanctions again, which are just a form of economic warfare. That's what the U.S. provides the world. What does Cuba export? Fucking doctors. I mean, Jesus Christ. PSL, Party for Socialism and Liberation, they're on the right side of history in this. U.S. imperialism seeks counter-revolution in Cuba. Again, that's all it is. Obviously, you're not going to see the Republican Party or the Democratic Party come out with a statement like this, are you? Of course fucking not. Hands off fucking Cuba. It's so fucking funny, like, there's this fucking liberal hack on Twitter, very small following, slightly bigger than mine, because I frankly don't, I just kind of retweet stuff on Twitter. But anyways, they were talking about how, I like to be at this rallies, SOS Cuba, but I also find like a lot of MAGA people here, like a lot of right-wing reactionaries. And then, again, this is just another case. You see the overlap between, far-right Republicans and so-called liberals totally in support of, the overthrow of the Cuban government and opening up to be exploited again for another dictatorship to get, U.S.-backed dictatorship to get installed. Pretty revealing, right? Yeah. Corporate media in the U.S. is pointing to these demonstrations as evidence that the people of Cuba oppose the revolutionary government, completely distorting the situation, covering up the criminal role of the U.S. Corporate media does a great job of that. Yeah. I mean, frankly, I don't think much is going to come from this. I think, frankly, the Cuban government is pretty strong. I mean, for fuck's sake, they've been able to last this long against this embargo, against the U.S. continually trying to, assassinate their leaders, whether it be, Castro or otherwise. And, it's also very funny that the United States is calling, Cuba this authoritarian regime when the United States has fucking Guantanamo Bay in Cuba, right? Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, where people have been held, a decade plus without any type of charge whatsoever. Pretty interesting, but not surprising that fact doesn't get called out on the corporate media, right? Yep, totally color revolution. Fighting coronavirus and blockade simultaneously. This is from Hood Communists. On June 29, 2021, just a couple weeks back, UN General Assembly, 184 nations overwhelmingly and democratically cast their votes against the U.S. blockade on Cuba, which represented a voting pattern that has been on display for the last 29 years. Regardless of the sentiment, the U.S. and Israel stubbornly stuck to their guns. Only 3 nations, Colombia, Ukraine, and Brazil, abstained from voting. Those probably would have voted on the side of the U.S. if they had voted, I would think. A position to force the vote provides an invaluable platform that captures the mood and sentiment of the entire planet. Again, except for, these 2 settler colonial states who voted to keep it in place. Look at this. While international community boldly sides with Cuba in their courageous fight against this hostile and outdated political measure, one of the biggest challenges they have faced is not allowing the blockade to divert attention from how the Henry Eve Medical Brigade currently has 57 medical brigades in approximately 40 nations and territories fighting the deadly coronavirus pandemic head on. It's not the fucking US, not this huge, massive, richest country in the world, this fucking empire. What do we have? Was it 700 military bases in 100 plus countries? We don't have universal health care. Cuba does. They have a lower infant mortality rate. They're exporting fucking doctors to 40 countries right now, while the United States is again exporting death and destruction on a huge, massive, disgusting, fucking inhumane scale. Yeah. Pedro Luis Cuesta. Let's see. The Cuban permanent rep to the United Nations. The accumulated damage that stems from the blockade has cost Cuba 853 billion US dollars. A lot of fucking money, again, for a very small island country. I think the population is about 11-12 million. Yeah, Kennedy introduced it. Then you had, the failed military invasion, the Bay of Pigs, that fucking the Castro and the Cuban government absolutely fucking destroyed. Love to see it. From April, during the pandemic, $9 billion just there. I mean, again, just look at the depravity of that. The United States wanting to overthrow this government that has national universal health care, that has a lower infant mortality rate, that has very similar life expectancy, that is exporting doctors to 50 countries around the world right now, while all the U.S. can do is export death and destruction and regime change and imperialism. Pretty fucking telling, right? I would much rather live in Cuba during a pandemic than the United States. Frankly, I'd much rather live in Cuba in general, because they actually have a fucking government in power, a socialist government that is actually concerned about the needs and the well-being of the most vulnerable and marginalized, as opposed to the U.S. government, which is completely bought and paid for by the fucking capitalist class. I mean, Jesus Christ. Again, if you're trying to nuance this, if you're trying to say there are both sides to this fucking story, shut the fuck up and seriously, deeply question yourself. Deeply question, why in the fuck are you doing the bidding of the U.S. Empire and the State Department and parodying these fucking imperialist talking points about what's going on in Cuba right now? Seriously, if you consider yourself on the left or a progressive, deeply think about this. Hands off Cuba, end the embargo, death to the U.S. Empire, may the Cuban Revolution, may this socialist government remain in power as they have been during this multi-long decade, just all-out war that the United States has been, trying to wage against them. Long live Cuba. Peace. Much love. Like the video if you like the damn video. Subscribe for more content. A lot of you folks who are watching my videos don't subscribe. Please subscribe. Peace. Much love.